the world's global emissions. Well, I'm now joined by Green Party councillor Steve Masters. Steve, so much for joining me again. On the 36 years to make a ground heat pump work, is this something that people are going to be able to afford to install? Where's the money coming from?
Well, it's interesting, actually, Jacob, that you talked about that. My partner is currently going through the process of getting a heat pump installed in her house. And the actual cost after the £5,000 subsidy is less than it would be for the equivalent oil boiler to be replaced in a rural area such as hers. And what we're finding is that actually the oil industry and the oil and gas industry are still being subsidised large amounts of money. It's very easy for you to talk about the green subsidies and that being passed on to the taxpayer. The oil and gas industry have been subsidised for trillions of pounds.
What subsidies are they getting? Tax
breaks. They don't have to clean up the North Sea, for example. There's no responsibility.
That when they decommission, the money they spend on decommissioning reduces their tax burden, but that's true of all companies on their capital expenditure, lowers their tax burden. It's no different for oil and gas companies than any other company.
But they're the biggest polluters,
That's a different argument. You said they got tax breaks.
But
what are these tax breaks? Where are these subsidies coming from?
So we're way behind on the adoption of heat pumps. And to say that it takes 36 years...
You said they got subsidies of trillions of dollars. Where are these subsidies coming from? Because I've heard other people make this argument, but nobody's ever identified where these subsidies come from. They're the huge
we've seen profits for oil and gas companies skyrocket over the last few years.
But that again is a completely different argument.
No, but
they get taxed very heavily on their profits.
They're not taxed, highly enough.
But that again isn't a subsidy.
Jacob, you talk about freedom of speech and letting people speak. If you want to take the burden away from working people that you ought to be supporting in this argument against net zero, we need to be taxing the polluters and making sure that they're the ones who face that burden. We need a just transition towards net zero, whether it's 2050 or 2030. We need to make sure, and I agree, it shouldn't be the everyday working man and woman who's paying for this. It should be the polluting industries, and they should be the argument against the new oil and gas licenses is, at what point do we stop issuing those licenses? We're already racing away.
Thank you, Steve.
Jacob,
we've got to move on. We've got to move on. But thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've got to move on to my panel.